Have you ever felt so exhausted from trying to hold a relationship together that you started to lose yourself in the process? We're told that love means fighting for it, but what if the greatest strength isn't in holding on, but in knowing when to finally let go? Let's be honest. How many times have you sacrificed your peace, your self-respect, and your identity to save a connection with someone who wasn't willing to meet you halfway? Is your worth truly defined by whether someone stays or goes? Society often praises those who keep fighting, who never give up. But what if the bravest act of all is to calmly accept an ending and walk away with dignity? Is there a powerful freedom to be found in releasing a burden you were never meant to carry? Welcome to StoicCraft, a space where we explore the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, not just to survive, but to build a life of purpose, peace, and unshakable inner strength. Have you ever cared so deeply for someone that when they left or grew distant, it felt like a part of you was ripped away? You shared moments, memories, maybe even parts of your identity, and then suddenly their absence became a heavy, confusing, and constant presence. You find yourself asking, how do I let go of someone who still lives so vividly in my mind? How do I stop feeling so attached without becoming bitter, cold, or completely numb to life's joys? This is where the profound wisdom of Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics offers a guiding light. They didn't teach us to simply suppress our feelings, but rather to master them. Their philosophy isn't about stopping ourselves from caring, but about learning to stop clinging to things we were never meant to hold on to forever. In this video, we're going to explore 5 powerful Stoic rules designed to help you navigate emotional detachment while remaining anchored in your own inner strength. If you're feeling that a part of you is ready to reclaim your peace of mind and find a new sense of calm, I invite you to stay with me through this journey. What you discover here may very well be the exact guidance you've been searching for a very long time. Our first rule is to truly understand and embrace the impermanence of life. Have you ever found yourself trying to hold on to someone so tightly that the harder you held, the more distant they seemed to become? Maybe it was a close friend you once spoke to every single day, or a partner you were certain would be with you for a lifetime. One moment they're fully integrated into your world, a key part of your routine and your very sense of self. And then it's as if they've slowly, silently, and mysteriously vanished. There was no big argument, no dramatic goodbye, just an unsettling and prolonged silence. And it's in that silence that our greatest suffering often begins. We suffer not just because they're gone, but because we never truly prepared ourselves for the possibility that they could leave. As the great philosopher Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the absolute truth. The problem is, when we become emotionally attached, we don't just bond with people. We build intricate stories around them in our minds. We create a narrative of permanence where none exists. We assign a shared meaning to the connection that the other person may not actually feel. We convince ourselves that this bond is fixed, solid, and guaranteed to last. But the difficult truth is, it never is. The Stoics knew that all things in life are fleeting. They understood that nothing truly belongs to us, not our possessions, not our time, not even our own youthful vigor. This is why the foundational rule of emotional detachment is to fully grasp the reality of impermanence. The Stoics didn't see this perspective as pessimistic or depressing. Quite the opposite, they viewed it as a vital form of preparation. If you can accept on a deep level that everything in life will eventually change, you naturally stop clinging so desperately. You begin to appreciate each moment as it comes, savoring it for what it is, rather than trying to desperately grip it out of a deep-seated fear of loss. I can recall a friendship I had that spanned well over a decade. We were close in a way that felt unbreakable. We knew each other's deepest secrets, dreams, and fears. We spent countless late nights in conversation that stretched until the first light of morning. But slowly, as our lives took different paths, so did our friendship. Texts became less frequent. The phone calls stopped altogether. I found myself clinging on, trying to breathe life back into what had passed. I was the one always initiating messages and meets, desperately pretending nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and every time I reached out, it felt like I was trying to pull something heavy, something completely lifeless, up a steep hill. Yet I couldn't bring myself to let go. Why? Because in my mind, that friendship was supposed to be forever. I was grieving a story I had written in my head, not the reality of what was happening right in front of me. It was only when I finally accepted the friendship had run its natural course that I began to feel a profound sense of freedom. There was no dramatic falling out or painful betrayal, just the organic, natural fade that life sometimes brings. And in that moment of realization, I was reminded of Marcus Aurelius's timeless wisdom. Accept everything which happens, even if it seems disagreeable, because it leads to the health of the universe. Letting go wasn't about giving up. It was about returning to the present moment, which is the only place where true peace can ever exist. Think of impermanence like the tide. You can't stop the waves from coming in and going out, no matter how hard you try. If you try to resist their powerful pull, you'll only exhaust yourself. But if you learn to simply float, to move with the current rather than against it, you begin to experience a strange and powerful sense of calm. This is because you are no longer trying to possess what was never truly yours to keep in the first place. The Stoics intentionally trained themselves to embrace this truth every single day. They practiced a mental exercise called premeditatio, malorum, which translates to premeditation of evils. They would imagine the loss of a loved one or a prized possession before it happened, not to suffer twice, but to suffer far less when it inevitably came to pass. They would gently remind themselves, this person I love may one day leave. This thing I value so much may break. This precious season of my life will not last. And by doing this, they became stronger, calmer, and more fully present in their lives. It is so easy to fall into the trap of believing that if something mattered to you, it should last forever. But life simply does not operate that way. Friendships naturally drift apart. Love can sometimes fade. People change and grow away from each other. This isn't a tragedy. It's a fundamental rhythm of life. And when you finally understand this rhythm, you stop fighting against the beat. So ask yourself, what emotional weight are you still carrying simply because you haven't accepted the impermanence of what you lost? Are you truly mourning the loss itself, or are you mourning the beautiful but impossible illusion that it would never change? Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering with clarity, without the emotional distortion of clinging. It means honoring what was real without the desperate need for it to have lasted forever. Embrace this powerful truth. People will come and go, but your inner peace, your ability to stay centered as life constantly shifts, is something you can build and protect. In the end, the person who accepts the natural flow of life will always suffer less than the one who foolishly tries to dam the river. Now that we've laid the groundwork for understanding impermanence, let's go even deeper. Because knowing that life changes is only half the battle. The next step is learning how to take firm control of your inner world when powerful emotions threaten to overpower your reason. Let's explore how your mind, and not your mood, holds the ultimate key to your peace. The second rule is to master your emotions through the power of rational thought. Have you ever sent a message to someone you deeply care about, maybe something vulnerable or incredibly honest, and then waited for a reply that simply never came? As the hours passed, did you feel a tightness in your chest, your thoughts beginning to spiral? Did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? Is this the end of our connection? Before you know it, your mind has managed to turn a simple moment of silence into a full-blown emotional storm. But if you pause for just a second and really ask yourself, what actually happened here? The simple, unembellished fact is this: they didn't respond yet. That's it. The rest of it, every anxious thought, every heavy emotion, every imagined negative outcome, was something your mind created entirely on its own. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his profound wisdom that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The Stoics firmly believe that our emotions are not facts. They are the direct result of how we think and how we interpret the world around us. Pain, sadness, and anger might feel automatic, as if they are a direct consequence of what happens to us. But the truth is, they don't originate from the external event itself. They come from the meaning we assign to that event. That is a hard truth to accept, but it's also an incredibly liberating one. The second rule of emotional detachment, then, is to master your emotions by first mastering your thoughts. This isn't about shutting down or suppressing how you truly feel. It's about learning to question the story you're telling yourself behind the feeling. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it best when he said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." In other words, life doesn't actually hurt you. Your interpretation of life does. Let's take the common experience of a painful breakup. When a relationship ends, you suddenly feel like your world is falling apart. You replay every single conversation. You obsess over what you should have said, or what you could have done differently to save it. You find yourself asking, how could they move on so quickly? Didn't our time together mean more to them? But what if, in that moment of despair, you interrupted that painful cycle and asked yourself instead, what are the actual verifiable facts here? The fact is, the relationship ended. Everything else, the meaning you give it, the judgment you pass on yourself, the worth you assign to yourself because of it, is simply a product of your own thoughts. And thoughts, thankfully, can be changed. I once went through a similar experience with a very close friend. We had a deeply personal conversation one evening, and I truly felt we had connected on a deeper level than ever before. The next day, I sent them a follow-up message to continue the conversation. No reply. Hours went by, then a full day. By the end of the night, my mind had convinced me that something was terribly wrong. I must have overshared. Maybe I had crossed an unspoken boundary. Maybe the friendship was completely ruined. My thoughts were racing, and my emotions, fear, anxiety, and sadness followed them like a shadow. But the very next morning, they replied to my message as if nothing had happened at all. It turned out they had a family emergency and simply hadn't looked at their phone. They weren't upset with me. They weren't pulling away. They were simply unavailable. That simple, illuminating moment taught me something incredibly powerful. My suffering wasn't caused by their silence. It was caused entirely by my own fearful and negative interpretation of that silence. As Marcus Aurelius famously said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. I had allowed my mind to dye that situation with fear, insecurity, and a false, hurtful meaning. When I could have waited in a state of calm peace, I chose instead to suffer through my own speculation. That is the fundamental choice we all face every single day. Will you believe every fleeting, anxious thought your mind throws at you, or will you slow down and ask, is this the reality of the situation, or just a powerful emotional reaction? When we stop blindly accepting every emotional reaction as the absolute truth, we begin to take back control of our inner world. We realize that mastering our emotions isn't about becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. It's about becoming sovereign the ruler of our own minds. It's about consciously choosing to nurture thoughts that serve our peace instead of allowing ones that poison it. So the next time you feel an emotional storm building inside you, when you're feeling angry, hurt, or anxious, ask yourself this: what am I actually reacting to? What are the hard facts of this situation? And what painful story am I creating? On top of them, this kind of inner questioning is not easy. It takes consistent discipline and a deep level of self-awareness. But it's the only way to stop being ruled by emotions that were never truly rooted in reality. And when you begin to think clearly, you begin to feel clearly, and that, my friends, is where true detachment really begins. Now that you've started to reclaim the power of your mind, it's time to build the kind of emotional resilience that keeps you steady even when loss is not just a possibility, but an inevitability. In our next rule, you will learn a powerful way to prepare your heart for change before it even comes, so that when life inevitably shifts, you remain standing tall. Let's continue. Rule number 3. Practice negative visualization for genuine resilience. Have you ever caught yourself fearing the worst and then instantly tried to block that thought out? Maybe you imagined someone you love suddenly leaving your life, or your entire world shifting without warning, and you immediately shook your head and told yourself, "Don't think like that. Just stay positive." Our modern society has conditioned us to avoid these types of thoughts at all costs. But what if the Stoics believed the exact opposite? What if facing those fears deliberately, calmly, and with a disciplined mind was actually the most powerful path to inner strength? Marcus Aurelius, writing in the quiet moments between the burdens of war and his vast political responsibilities, once wrote, "Do not disturb yourself by imagining the whole of your life's troubles at once. Rather, as each arises, meet it with calmness and self-control." The Stoics were not telling us to dwell in the darkness. They were teaching us to train for it. They called this practice premeditatio malorum, which can be translated as the premeditation of adversity, or in our modern terms, negative visualization. At first, this sounds completely counterintuitive. Why would anyone intentionally picture losing what they love the most? But the uncomfortable truth is, everything you care about is temporary. Your relationships, your routines, even your own physical body, they are all temporary. You can choose to ignore that uncomfortable truth, or you can choose to prepare for it. And please understand this. Preparation doesn't harden your heart. It strengthens your spirit. A few years ago, one of my closest friends told me they were considering moving to a different continent. We had been inseparable for years, with daily phone calls, shared inside jokes, and countless deep conversations about life and our purpose. Suddenly, there was a very real possibility that one day I would wake up and they wouldn't be here anymore. My first instinct was to deny it, to say to myself, "No way, that's not going to happen. I'll figure out a way to keep them here." But that kind of resistance and denial only made the fear worse and more consuming. Then I remembered the Stoics. I began practicing what they had taught me in a way that felt authentic to me. Every morning I would take a few quiet minutes to imagine what my life would genuinely be like if they were gone. I didn't do this as a form of self-punishment, but as a deliberate act of preparation. I'd picture myself sitting alone at the coffee shop where we used to meet, and I'd visualize coming home after a rough day and not having their voice on the other end of a phone call. But then I would push myself even further. I would imagine what came next: new routines, different conversations, and new ways for me to grow as a person without them physically present. When the day finally came and they did move, it still hurt, of course. There was a sense of profound sadness, but the pain didn't completely crush me. I had already walked through that goodbye 100 times in my mind, and because of that preparation, I didn't fall apart. I was able to adapt, to find a way forward. That's the incredible power of negative visualization. You don't do it to suffer in advance. You do it to lessen the shock when the inevitable happens. It's a way to remind yourself with certainty that you can and will survive what you fear. It teaches you that a loss is not the end of your world. It's simply a transition to a new phase of it. Seneca, another great Stoic, echoed this sentiment when he wrote, "He robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand." When you stop clinging to the expectation that everything must stay the same, you stop feeling entitled to permanence. And when you let go of that suffocating sense of entitlement, you also let go of the fear that tries to grip you every time something in your life feels fragile. So take a moment to think about your own life. Perhaps you're in a relationship right now and you're constantly worried that it might end. Maybe you overthink every single message, every delay in a response, every subtle shift in tone. You tell yourself you're just being cautious, but in reality, you're living in a state of fear, the fear of losing what you've convinced yourself you can't live without. What if, instead of fighting that fear and running from it, you deliberately walked straight into it? Picture the worst-case scenario. Allow yourself to feel that pain fully for a brief moment. And then take one more crucial step. Visualize your life after it happens. what you would rebuild, the person you would become, the friendships you would deepen, and the inner strength you would discover in the process. When you practice this regularly, something remarkable happens. The grip of fear begins to loosen. You stop desperately needing guarantees from the universe or from other people. You start to trust in your own immense resilience. True emotional detachment doesn't mean you care less. It means you live with a profound sense of clarity. You enjoy what you have while you have it with every fiber of your being, and you simultaneously prepare your mind and heart for the moment it may no longer be there. That's not a morbid or dark way of thinking. That, my friend, is wisdom. So the next time you find yourself clinging tightly to someone or something, ask yourself, what am I truly afraid to lose? And what would it look like if I could lose it and still stand tall, whole, and at peace? Because that is the true heart of Stoic resilience, not avoiding loss, but walking through the possibility of it and realizing that you are still and will always be whole. Now that you've begun to strengthen your mind to face potential loss, it's time to shift your focus to the things you actually have power over. In the next rule, we'll explore perhaps the most liberating Stoic principle of all, learning to let go of everything you can't control. Let's move on. Rule number 4. Focus on what you can control. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right in a relationship? Being thoughtful, present, and giving your absolute best to someone, and yet it still wasn't enough. They grew distant. They started to pull away, and no matter how much effort you poured in, it felt like you were chasing a shadow that kept slipping through your hands. That deep sense of helplessness, of giving everything you had and still losing, can be a truly soul-crushing experience. It leaves you wondering, what more could I possibly have done? How do I fix this? But here's a liberating truth the Stoics understood perfectly. Our suffering often begins the very moment we try to control what isn't ours to command. Marcus Aurelius' timeless words still resonate powerfully today. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That one single sentence holds a lifetime of freedom within it. If we're honest with ourselves, so much of our emotional pain, especially in our relationships, comes from our desperate attempts to control the uncontrollable, their feelings, their decisions, and their behavior. We bend over backwards, we adjust our own lives, and we perform in ways that are unnatural to us, all in the hope that they will stay or love us in the exact way we love them. But it never works, because no matter how perfect you try to be, you can never ever govern someone else's heart. I remember being in a relationship where I constantly felt like I had to earn my place. I would plan incredibly thoughtful dates, send kind messages, and try to anticipate their every need. But the more I gave, the less seen and appreciated I felt. They would withdraw, and in turn I would only try harder. It became a vicious cycle, me pouring out more of my energy, and them pulling further and further away. It wasn't until I was completely burned out that I finally realized the problem wasn't that I wasn't enough. The true problem was that I was trying to control how they felt about me, and that was never in my hands to begin with. That is the entire essence of this rule, focusing only on what you have the power to control. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, and nothing more. You can't make someone care. You can't force someone to value you or see your worth. But you can absolutely choose how you show up in the world. You can choose whether you stay in a dynamic that constantly drains you, or whether you walk away with your self-respect intact. The moment I stopped trying to manage their emotions and started managing my own expectations, something shifted dramatically. I found a deep sense of inner peace, not because they changed, but because I did. I finally let go of the illusion that I could make the relationship work through sheer effort alone. And in that profound act of letting go, I finally reclaimed my own energy. Seneca wisely wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And one of the greatest wastes of our precious time is trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed or desperately waiting on a form of validation that may never ever come. When your sense of happiness and worth depends entirely on someone else's attention or approval, you have given them immense power over your inner peace. That isn't love. That is a form of emotional captivity. Imagine for a moment that you're in a friendship where you constantly feel overlooked. You are always the one reaching out, checking in, and trying to keep the connection alive, but they never seem to meet you halfway. Naturally, this hurts deeply. You start wondering if you said something wrong, replaying conversations in your head and searching for the exact moment when everything shifted. But the Stoic answer is not to spiral down that rabbit hole of self-doubt. It's to pause and ask yourself, what is actually mine to own here? You can't force them to show up. You can't make them prioritize you. But you can absolutely decide whether you want to continue investing your valuable time and energy in someone who isn't willing to invest in you. That choice and the freedom that comes with it is entirely yours. Emotional detachment in this context isn't about coldly shutting people out. It's about releasing the desperate need for them to be any different than they are. It's about consciously stopping the chase. You stop making your peace conditional on their presence, their affection, or their approval. You create a powerful sense of emotional autonomy, a self that stands steady and secure no matter who comes or who goes from your life. There was a point in my life when I realized I was giving far too much weight to how others treated me. If someone was warm and kind to me, I felt worthy. If someone was cold or distant, I felt rejected and worthless. I was living on an exhausting emotional roller coaster, constantly reacting to things I had absolutely no control over. But when I began to apply these Stoic principles, something truly powerful happened. I started anchoring my sense of worth and who I chose to be, not in how others chose to respond to me. And that changed everything. As Marcus Aurelius so eloquently put it, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The pain you might be feeling right now, the rejection, the confusion, the longing that is your path forward. Not a path to fix the other person, but a path to fix your own focus. So if you're asking yourself, what can I do to make them come back? How do I make this relationship right again? You're asking the wrong questions. Ask instead, what is mine to control right now? And what is mine to finally release? Because once you let go of what you can't control, you begin to rise, not in bitterness, but in newfound clarity. And now that you've learned to reclaim your power by focusing on yourself, we'll take it one step further. In our final rule, you'll see how stepping back and looking at the bigger picture can dissolve the powerful illusion that this one person or this one moment defines your entire worth. Let's continue to the final rule. Rule number 5, reflect on the bigger picture. Have you ever been so overwhelmed by the end of a relationship that it felt like your entire world had just collapsed? Like nothing else in your life mattered and your future had been completely erased? When you're lost in that kind of emotional fog, it's nearly impossible to see anything beyond your present pain. Every hour feels heavier than the last. Every memory stings. And the persistent question running through your mind is always the same. How am I supposed to move on from this? This is exactly where the Stoic perspective becomes not just useful, but truly life-saving. Marcus Aurelius, in his timeless wisdom, wrote, "You have to assemble your life yourself, action by action, and be satisfied if each one achieves its goal as far as possible." In other words, he's telling us to zoom out. This one painful moment you're currently drowning in is not your whole story. It's a single scene in the vast script of your life, not the entire script itself. When we're emotionally attached to someone, our vision often narrows. They become the center of our universe. Our happiness, our worth, our entire future, it all gets tied to their presence. So when they leave or disappoint us, we feel like we've lost ourselves too. But the powerful truth is, you were always so much more than just that one person. You were always more than just that one chapter in your life. I once went through a breakup that genuinely felt like the end of my world. It wasn't because they had done something terrible, but because I had so completely wrapped my own identity around them that I had stopped seeing the bigger picture of my own life. For weeks I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. Everything in my world felt dimmer, as if a light had been turned off. But eventually something shifted inside me. I took a long walk one night alone under a sky full of countless stars, and for the very first time I asked myself, will this truly matter in 5 years? Does this one person truly define the meaning of my entire life? That single question was like a crack in the powerful illusion I had built. I began to remember all the other parts of me that had existed long before that relationship ever began, the passions, the other people I cared about, the sense of purpose I once had. Slowly, piece by piece, I started to rebuild my own life, and what helped me the most wasn't some new distraction. It was gaining a wider perspective. I realized that the breakup wasn't the ending I had feared. It was simply a turning point in a much longer, richer, and more complex journey. That's what the Stoics teach us, to view our life from a higher altitude, to remember that every storm eventually clears, and when it does, you'll still be standing stronger, wiser, and more grounded than you ever were before. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that our fears, our attachments, and even our grief are all fleeting in the grand, unstoppable flow of time. Time is like a river, he wrote, made up of events that happen in a violent stream, for as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place. So if you're hurting right now, I'm not telling you to pretend that the pain doesn't exist. I'm not telling you to simply forget about it. I'm asking you to look wider, to step back from the immediacy of the moment and see the bigger picture. Look at the 5-year timeline of your life, the 10-year view. How many moments like this have you already survived? How many times have you been through a difficult transition only to find yourself on the other side, still standing. And every single time you rose up, every single time, you became a stronger, wiser person than you. Where before, that's not a coincidence. That's a sign of your incredible capacity for growth. When you truly reflect on the bigger picture of your journey, you begin to naturally loosen the powerful grip that temporary people or fleeting moments have on your permanent peace. You stop giving one difficult season the power to define your entire life's journey. And when you can do that, you stop reacting from a place of panic and fear and start responding from a place of purpose and intentionality. So, if this message speaks to something real and true inside of you, I invite you to take one small, simple action. Just take a moment and comment the word perspective down below. Just add a simple, powerful reminder to zoom out, to take a deep breath, and to remember that this current moment is not the whole of your life. And if you've made it this far, thank you, and please consider subscribing to the channel. This space is here for people just like you, people who want to think more deeply, live more calmly, and rise stronger from life's challenges. Because true emotional detachment isn't about shutting down your heart. It's about waking up to how truly big and expansive your life is. Let this be the start of that powerful awakening for you. And if you're ready to keep building on that clarity, I have something special coming next. You have just walked through the fire of detachment. You've learned what it means to let go with clarity, to see people for who they truly are, not for who you desperately hoped they would be. You faced the grief of emotional distance and the difficult truth that not everything that is broken is meant to be fixed. But here is the most crucial part, and what most people don't realize. Detachment is not the finish line. It's the threshold. Because once you stop desperately chasing what no longer serves your peace, the question becomes, what are you running towards? You're no longer gripping the past, but what are you holding on to now? Is it silence and emptiness, or is it anew? Space is sacred open space ready to be filled with something stronger, something more real and more lasting. This is the holy turning point, the moment where clarity must become action, the moment where letting go must evolve into building something new. This is the moment where the energy you once scattered trying to save someone else is finally returned to you. And now the real work begins, not the work of forgetting, but the work of forging a new self. Not the work of avoiding pain, but the work of rising up through it. Now you begin the deeper Stoic path, the one that doesn't just teach you how to stop caring about the wrong people, but how to start becoming the right person for yourself. Because true Stoicism was never about suppression of emotions. It was always about profound transformation. It's not about becoming less emotional. It's about becoming more unshakable, more self-anchored, and more deeply rooted in what you can control and who you are actively becoming. So in the second part of this journey, we'll go deeper. We'll move beyond detachment and step into true self-mastery, into what it means to rebuild your life from the inside out. We'll explore how you can stop being a mere reaction to what hurt you and start becoming a powerful force that no longer depends on anyone else to feel whole. You aren't here just to survive a loss. You're here to rise from it with a new sense, a vision to build a life so meaningful and so self-led that no one's departure can ever unseat your peace again. Let's begin the next chapter. Rule number 1. You don't owe anyone your breakdown. Have you ever found yourself giving absolutely everything you had just to hold a relationship together, until you finally realized you were the only one holding it up at all? You tried to talk it through. You tried to be more patient, more forgiving, and more understanding. You gave more of yourself than you even had to give. And yet nothing changed. They kept pulling away, and you kept reaching naively, thinking that maybe if you just tried a little bit harder, they would come back. This is the trap that so many of us fall into, the belief that love means sacrifice at any and all costs. The belief that if someone is slipping away, it's your solemn duty to grab tighter. That if they are unhappy, it's your job to fix it for them, but the Stoics would tell you otherwise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." That doesn't mean you should tolerate being used, taken for granted, or emotionally drained. It means maintaining your own integrity and peace even when others lose theirs. It means being fully responsible for your own peace, not for someone else's chaos. You were not put on this earth to be someone's emotional firefighter. You were not born to bleed quietly just so someone else can avoid their own necessary healing journey. The Stoic way is not about coldness. It's about clarity. And clarity means having the self-awareness to recognize when you've crossed the line from healthy compassion into a dangerous and destructive self-sacrifice. I remember a story about a woman who spent years in a relationship with a man who absolutely refused to grow or take responsibility for his actions. He would disappear emotionally for days on end, only to reappear with a new set of excuses. And each time she would open her arms and welcome him back. She truly believed that if she showed him enough love, he would finally choose to stay and be the man she knew he could be. But one night, after another long period of silence, he told her something that broke her heart, not because it was cruel, but because it was undeniably true. He said, "I never asked you to care so much." He never asked, yet she kept offering, kept giving. She had tragically confused her willingness to help with a deep sense of personal responsibility. She thought that carrying his burdens would prove her worthiness. In reality, it was only burying her beneath someone else's problems and pain. Seneca once wisely said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." The suffering you carry because of someone else's neglect is not noble or selfless. It is simply misplaced. You don't need to exhaust yourself trying to explain your feelings to those who have already decided not to understand you. You don't need to lose your sense of self and your identity trying to hold together something that is falling apart simply because one person refuses to meet you halfway. Emotional detachment in this case is not a lack of love. Rather, it is the highest form of respect for yourself. It's looking at someone and quietly saying, "I care about you, but I will not destroy myself to prove it." It's about stepping out of the role of the rescuer and finally realizing that your energy is too sacred and too finite to waste on trying to save someone who has no genuine interest in saving themselves. The very moment you stop setting yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm, something incredible happens inside. You feel lighter. You start to truly see the difference between genuine connection and destructive codependency. You begin to reclaim the parts of yourself that were always begging for air beneath all the emotional weight you were carrying. And perhaps the hardest part of all, no one is going to give you permission to stop. You have to be the one to choose it. You have to make the powerful decision that your peace matters more than their approval. You have to decide that your own dignity matters more than their confusion. And you have to understand that your silence might be the only language they will ever truly understand. The Stoics teach us to act with virtue, not to be emotional martyrs. They teach us to show up with compassion, but never at the cost of our own clarity. To give without expectation, but never to give ourselves away completely. So if you find yourself stuck in that exhausting place, always explaining, always fixing, always giving more than you are receiving, step back. Not because you are cold or unfeeling, but because you are finally clear. And once you learn to protect that inner peace, the next step is even more powerful. It's about building a life so full, so deeply rooted in your own values, that you no longer feel the need to chase what walked away from you. Let's move on. Rule number 2. Build a life so full you don't chase what's gone. There is a certain kind of silence that inevitably follows the end of a deep connection. The text messages stop coming. The phone calls don't ring anymore. And the routines that once gave your days a sense of structure vanish overnight. In that new, deafening silence, it's all too easy to confuse absence with emptiness. You start to think, I feel this way because they're gone. But what if the truth is deeper than that? What if what you're really feeling isn't just the loss of a person, but the presence of the empty space where your own life should have been all along? The Stoics were never obsessed with other people or external events. They were obsessed with principles and with building a life that stands strong on its own, regardless of who is in it. Seneca once said, "A great mind becomes a great fortune." What he meant was, if you want to stop being shaken by what leaves your life, you need to start building something inside of you that no one can ever take away. After a breakup or a painful transition, most people's first instinct is to try to fill the void with distractions, new people, new pleasures, constant noise. But Stoicism teaches us the exact opposite. Don't run from the space they left behind. Step directly into it. Allow it to be the quiet, open room where you finally have the chance to grow. I once knew a man who lost a woman he thought he would marry. She ended things suddenly, with no explanation, just silence. For weeks, he was paralyzed, grieving not only her absence, but the entire identity he had built around being with her. But then something changed. He stopped checking her social media. He stopped replaying their old conversations in his mind. Instead, he made a list of all the things he had postponed for the relationship, the personal goals he had shelved, the hobbies he had let die, and the friendships he had neglected. He started rebuilding, not to prove anything to her, but to remember who he was before he forgot. He went back to the gym. He picked up painting again. He spent weekends with people who genuinely uplifted him instead of draining his energy. He stopped living on borrowed attention and started living from a place of inner fulfillment. Months later, she eventually reached out, but by then he no longer needed closure. He had become someone whose life was simply too full, too rich, to chase what was already gone. That's the kind of resilience Stoicism builds. Not the kind that says, I don't care anymore, but the kind that says, I'm building something so grounded and so meaningful that I don't have the time or the desire to chase what walked away. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. That isn't just poetic, it's a blueprint for living. Your routines, your health, your career, your personal learning, these are not distractions from a broken heart. They are the very foundation of your freedom. Letting go isn't just about removing someone from your life. It's about filling that empty space with everything you have been neglecting. When your world no longer revolves around one person, it starts to open up in incredible ways. You begin to notice beauty again. You develop new skills and passions. You gain strength you never knew you had. You become attractive in a way that has nothing to do with romance and everything to do with personal power. So instead of asking, "How do I get them back?" ask, "What can I build now that they're gone?" Because that's the powerful shift. That's where detachment becomes transformation. Your grief deserves space, but so does your growth. Don't fill the silence they left behind with longing. Fill it with purpose, with motion, and with creation. And the more you do, the less their absence feels like a devastating loss, and the more it begins to feel like the beginning of your powerful return to yourself. Next, we'll go even deeper into this transformation, into how rejection, instead of being a deep wound, can actually become a doorway to a new and better version of you. Because what feels like being pushed away might just be the universe repositioning you for something greater than you ever imagined. Let's continue. Rule number 3. Turn rejection into inner reinvention. There is a moment after a profound rejection that feels like the entire world stops turning. You hear the silence on the other end of the phone. You read the cold, final message. You feel the coldness in their tone. And somewhere deep inside, something just collapses. Not just your plans with them, but the entire story you were writing around them. The future you had so carefully imagined, and the very identity you had tied to. Being chosen by them. Rejection hits far deeper than we often like to admit. It's not just because of what we lose, but because of what it forces us to confront about ourselves, our deep-seated insecurities, our expectations, and our hidden dependencies. But the Stoics saw rejection through a completely different lens. To them, rejection was not a punishment. It was a profound revelation. Seneca, in his wisdom, said, "It is when we are cast out that we find better ground." When you are pushed away, it's not always the world turning its back on you. Sometimes it's a sign that life is removing something unstable from your life so that you can finally have the opportunity to rebuild on solid ground and a much more truthful foundation. Most people's immediate response to rejection is to shrink and retreat. They overanalyze every detail. They blame themselves endlessly. They wonder what was missing in them, what went wrong, or what they could have said or done differently to change the outcome. But the wiser question isn't, "Why didn't they choose me?" The wiser question is, "Why was I waiting to be chosen in the first place?" I once knew a man who applied for what he considered his dream job, something he had been working toward with a single-minded focus for years. He made it all the way to the final round of interviews, and his hopes were sky high. He felt confident that his interview had gone incredibly well. But then came the email with the inevitable words, We've decided to go in a different direction." He was absolutely crushed. For weeks, he spiraled into a deep state of self-doubt. He was devastated not just because of the job itself, but because his entire identity was so profoundly attached to that one outcome. It wasn't just a career opportunity that got rejected. It was a version of himself that he had built entirely around the approval of a company. But then he did something truly radical. Instead of staying in that pit of despair, he turned his focus inward. He began to ask himself the difficult questions. What am I really after in my life, beneath all the expectations? What version of myself do I want to become, with or without that job title? He went back to his roots. He started studying, creating, and building on his own terms. A year later, he launched his own business in the exact same industry. And here's the most beautiful part. That same company later reached out to him to collaborate. By then, he no longer needed their validation because he had already validated himself. That is the profound shift. Rejection is not a closed door. It is a mirror. It shows you exactly where you were giving your power away to an external source. It reflects back your deepest insecurities and your hidden dependencies. And if you are brave enough to face that mirror, it becomes a powerful chisel. You don't just look at yourself. You begin to reshape yourself into who you were always meant to be. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Rejection is not an obstacle to be avoided. It is the raw material of reinvention. It is the challenging but necessary beginning of a version of you that doesn't beg for belonging, but instead builds its own ground, its own home. This doesn't mean you won't feel the sting of rejection. You will, of course. The Stoic doesn't deny emotion. He studies it. He asks, what does this feeling teach me about my ego, my expectations, my self-created illusions? And then he lets the lesson burn away everything that isn't real. You are not here to be someone's option. You are not here to wait at the door of approval, hoping to be let in. You are here to build something so rooted and so solid within yourself that rejection from others becomes irrelevant. Not because you're numb, but because you've finally remembered your own worth. So the next time you hear no, let it echo as a powerful reminder, not of your failure, but of your freedom. Not of your lack, but of your boundless potential. Because what left wasn't the whole of you. It was simply the part that wasn't meant to come with you to your next chapter. And in that next chapter, you'll need more than just clarity. You'll need emotional wisdom, the ability to love deeply without losing yourself. That's what we'll explore in the next rule. Let's keep going. Rule number 4. Detach without becoming numb. There's a moment in the healing process where we often confuse silence with strength. You might tell yourself you're getting better because you've stopped reaching out to them. You no longer cry uncontrollably. You no longer ask questions. You no longer feel a powerful sting when their name shows up somewhere. But deep down, you also don't feel much of anything at all. In that state, you haven't healed. You've simply hardened. You haven't grown stronger. You've gone numb. And that, my friend, is not Stoicism. That is merely quiet survival, and you deserve so much more than that. Stoicism does not ask us to become emotionally cold. It does not praise indifference or numbness as a virtue. What it offers is a path that is far more difficult and far more noble. It asks us to become emotionally wise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. That judgment, if left unchecked, can lead to one of two destructive paths: obsessive attachment or complete emotional shutdown." The Stoic walks a different, more balanced path. He seeks not to escape emotion, but to understand it, to master it, and to live beside it without becoming completely ruled by it. To detach without becoming numb is the art of warm separation. It's when your care for someone is genuine, but not enslaving. It's when you can love someone deeply, but not lose yourself in the process of trying to keep them. It's when you can give, not because you need to be needed, but simply because giving aligns with the kind of person you are. It's a subtle but profound strength, one that doesn't need to be loud or performative to be truly unshakable. I once heard the story of a man named Elias who was married for 7 years to a woman he adored. They had built a life that looked absolutely perfect from the outside, but on the inside, the emotional intimacy had slowly faded away. She no longer truly saw him. Her words were clipped, and her attention was always somewhere else. Still, he held on desperately, not because he didn't see the truth, but because he didn't know how to walk away from something he had poured so much of his heart and soul into. One night, he accidentally found her journal left open on her nightstand. Not out of a malicious impulse to snoop, but out of a deep and desperate instinct. He read a page. It was filled with her reflections about how distant she felt from him, how trapped she felt in their life together, and how she longed for something more passionate and more alive. His first reaction, naturally, was devastation. His second, however, was a quiet, powerful detachment, but not the kind of detachment that heals. It was the kind that numbs. For months he moved through his days on autopilot. There were no arguments, no tears, just a suffocating silence. Everyone on the outside thought he was handling it remarkably well, but the truth was he felt nothing at all. He had buried every single one of his emotions under the weight of pretending to be stoic, when in reality he was just desperately afraid of feeling too much. It wasn't until a trusted friend finally confronted him, asking, "When did you stop showing up for yourself?" that he finally cracked open. For the very first time, he admitted that he missed her, that he was angry, that he felt completely discarded. And in the simple act of naming those feelings, of not avoiding them, he began to find true clarity. He didn't explode in anger. He didn't collapse into despair. He simply told her the truth, calmly and with an unwavering voice. "I love you, but I refuse to become invisible to keep this alive." And with that, he let her go, not with coldness, but with a quiet calm, not with blame, but with firm, respectful boundaries. That is what it truly means to detach without becoming numb. You don't sever your heart from the world. You stretch it toward yourself. You don't abandon the idea of love itself. You refine it. You don't retreat from intimacy. You become more discerning about who earns access to the inner life you are so carefully building. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. That friction, that trial, is not in feeling nothing at all. It's in feeling everything fully without becoming consumed by it. It's in showing compassion while still having the strength to walk away. It's in letting someone go without shutting yourself off from love forever. To detach in the Stoic way is to live with open eyes and an open heart, but with a spine made of tempered steel. You don't let pain harden you. You let it sharpen your awareness and focus. You don't become emotionless. You become emotionally sovereign, the ruler of your own feelings. The world will tell you that numbness is strength, that cutting people off is power, that disappearing is maturity. But Stoicism teaches something far more radical and beautiful. Real strength is staying present, staying soft, and staying principled, even in the face of profound rejection or painful loss. It's having the courage to feel deeply and still choosing virtue over bitterness. So if you're navigating detachment, right now, ask yourself, am I building impenetrable walls, or am I building healthy boundaries? Am I shutting down in fear, or am I sitting with the discomfort until clarity finally emerges? Am I withdrawing in pain, or am I stepping back with intention? Because the point is not to feel less. The point is to feel everything and still be able to choose your response. That is warm detachment. That is emotional maturity. That is Stoic power. And once you master that beautiful balance between feeling deeply and standing firmly in your truth, you begin to unlock the final, most liberating truth of all, that you never needed them to complete you. You were always whole. They were simply a chapter. Let's turn the page together. Rule number 5. You were always whole. They were just a chapter. There comes a moment in the healing process when the heavy fog of grief finally starts to lift. The silence of their absence becomes less deafening. The endless questions lose their grip on your mind. You no longer replay the same painful conversations or obsess over the what-ifs and if-onlys. And in that quiet, newfound space, something completely unexpected happens. You begin to feel your own weight again, not as a burden, but as a presence, a deep sense of fullness, a solid center. And for the first time in a long time, you realize you were never broken. You were just distracted from yourself. When someone leaves your life, it often feels like they've taken something with them, a piece of you, a part of your identity, your sense of home, safety, or meaning. But that, my friend, is an illusion, because nothing essential can ever be taken from you. Not your values, not your capacity for growth, and certainly not your soul. What they carried away was not your worth. It was simply the role they played in one chapter of your life. And like any good chapter, it was meant to end so the next one could begin. The Stoics were masters at helping us see our lives in the proper proportion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And what greater outside event is there than the presence or absence of another human being? But if you spend your entire life measuring your value by who comes and who stays, you'll never stand still long enough to become who you truly are. You are not defined by who stayed. You are not diminished by who walked away. And you are not a half-finished person waiting to be completed by someone who may never return. You were whole before they arrived, and you are whole now. You simply forgot that a deep sense of wholeness can feel quiet and calm when you've gotten used to a life filled with emotional noise. I remember a story about a young man who fell deeply in love during a season of his life when he felt most unsure of himself. The woman brought a vibrant color into his days and a powerful sense of meaning to his routines. They planned everything together, from holidays to future homes and even the names of children they hadn't yet conceived. It felt like his world finally made sense through her. But when it ended, he was completely wrecked. He didn't know how to be without her because somewhere along the way, she had become the main character of his story, and he had become a side character in his own life. For months he couldn't sleep. He searched for closure, sending long texts that went unanswered, and rereading old messages as if they were sacred scriptures. But nothing brought her back. Eventually, not out of newfound strength, but from sheer emotional exhaustion, he stopped reaching out. And in that empty space, the strangest and most beautiful thing happened. He picked up his guitar again. He reconnected with old friends. He began writing, not about her, but about himself, his own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. His voice returned. His spine straightened. And slowly, he began to remember what it felt like to live his own life, without orbiting someone else. One evening, sitting alone on a balcony with a steaming cup of coffee, and no need to explain himself to anyone, he had a single powerful thought. I'm okay. It wasn't because the pain was suddenly gone, but because the pain had finally done its job. It had carved out a new, empty space for him to come back home to himself. That is the incredible Stoic gift of perspective. It reminds us that time doesn't erase meaning, but it does reveal it. What once felt like the absolute end of your world becomes, in retrospect, just a pivotal turning point. What once consumed every fiber of your being becomes something you simply outgrow. And what once defined your entire identity becomes a small footnote in the much larger story you are still writing. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." If heartbreak is a form of adversity, then detachment is the powerful proof of your growth. It's not about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering who you were before you bent your own identity to fit someone else's love. So yes, they mattered. Yes, they shaped you, but they were not the whole book. They were a chapter, a paragraph, a sentence, or perhaps even a single beautiful word. But you, my friend, are the author. And this page, the one you're on right now, is the one where you stop writing for someone else's attention and begin crafting something much deeper and more authentic for your own integrity. Because the greatest form of freedom is not moving on from a person or a situation. It's moving inward into yourself, into your own values, into your own quiet, and into your own power. You will love again, but you will do so not from a place of emptiness, but from a place of fullness. You will love not to be rescued, but to share what you have. You will love not to find meaning, but to offer it. And when you do, it won't feel like you are losing yourself again. It will feel like you are finding someone who finally recognizes how whole and complete you already are. This isn't the end of your story. It's just the beautiful part where you remember that everything you were searching for in someone else, you have always carried within. All you had to do was pause long enough to hear your own voice again, So take a deep, cleansing breath. Close that chapter firmly and walk forward, not with bitterness or regret, but with the quiet confidence of someone who's finally come home to themselves. So the next time you feel yourself clinging too tightly to someone who no longer shows up for you, to memories that no longer serve you, or to a version of love that only lives in your mind, pause. Just pause and ask yourself gently, but honestly, who has more control here, my emotions or me? This is where emotional freedom begins. Not in cutting people off, not in pretending you no longer care, but in seeing clearly, in choosing clarity over chaos, peace over proving, and stillness over struggle. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. If your thoughts are painted in fear and longing and in desperation, you will eventually drown in them. But if you train them toward virtue, strength, and inner steadiness, your soul becomes unshakable." Detachment isn't a form of apathy. It is a form of sacred discernment. It's the courage to walk away, not because you've stopped loving, but because you've started remembering your own worth. It's the strength to let silence speak louder than arguments. And it's the wisdom to know that being ignored isn't always rejection. Sometimes it is a gentle redirection. You don't owe anyone your breakdown. You don't need to collapse just to prove you cared. The Stoic way is to feel fully and then act wisely. To process your grief, not perform it for others. To choose your response instead of reacting blindly out of pain. Because every single time you respond with dignity instead of desperation, you take back a piece of your power that was never theirs to hold in the first place. Letting go hurts, but so does holding on to something that is quietly eroding your self-respect. And when you stop begging for a closeness that cost you your center, you will discover a quiet miracle. Yourself, stronger, clearer, and still here. So if this message found its way to you at the right moment, I invite you to leave a comment below with the words "inner freedom," a simple reminder to yourself and to others that true peace isn't something you beg for. It's something you confidently claim. And if this video gave you the space to reflect, to feel, and to exhale, then consider subscribing. Not out of pressure, but as a quiet, conscious decision to walk deeper into this journey of clarity, calm, and deliberate living. Because detachment is not the end. It's the powerful beginning of authorship, of turning silence into strength and loss into profound wisdom. And in the next video, we'll explore what comes after letting go. We'll explore how to rebuild a life so powerful, so rooted in who you are, that no person and no absence can ever take it from you again. Until then, be gentle with your healing, ruthless with your boundaries, and faithful to your own becoming. You are already enough. Now go protect that dot. If this message resonates with you, I invite you to leave a comment below with the word freedom and share your own journey. Or click on the playlist in the description to continue building a life so full that no one's departure can ever unseat your peace again.